Oh, yeah. Health and safety announcement. There is no fire alarm drill anticipated today. If the alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the green running man signs above the doors. Please make your way to the rear of the car park, muster point, and wait for the organiser of the meeting to tell you when it is safe to return. Toilets are available in the stairwell of the building at each floor landing. Water is available in reception. Finally, please make sure all phones are either muted or switched off. Good afternoon and welcome to the South and East Devon Habitat Regulations Executive Committee meeting on the Thursday, the 27th of April 2023. I am your Chair, Councillor Jeff Young. Can I remind everyone present that this meeting is being recorded for the subsequent publication on the Council's website. Can all members and officers make a contribution to the meeting, use a microphone, or your comments will not be recorded? Then I move on to agenda item 1, public speaking. There are no members of the public registered today. Item 2 is the committee's wish that I sign the minutes of the meeting as a true and accurate record.
Yes.
Yes. So we move on to agenda item 3, apologies. Are there any apologies?
No, Chair.
Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest to declare? And Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. I will declare my usual interests. I live overlooking the Exe and I'm a member of and treasurer for the Cockwood Boat Club.
Thank you for that. And I have a effects non-registerable interest, member of Woodbury PC, the area of which includes part of the Pebble Bed Heaths. That is until the end of next week. Agenda item 7, 2022-23 annual business plan, annual report. Welcome to Naomi Harnett, Principal Project Manager for East Devon District Council. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The report summarises the progress made on the items which were approved in our annual business plan in May 2022. Hopefully all members of the committee have read this report and the content within. Just draw your attention to table 2 where we've got new mitigation measures which are in progress. The items in progress which include the Petalwort monitoring and the botanical monitoring are in progress because of the narrow windows in which this work can be completed. The items regarding the excess tree leaflets were not approved until November, and so there's details of the scheduling of that work in footnote 7. And then moving on to table 4, the items for Dawlish Warren are currently on hold due to the Environment Agency work, and this will be considered in the developing mitigation strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions?
Having just come from an Environment Agency meeting where we did talk about quite a number of different bits and pieces, what is the current understanding from this group about the Environment Agency work? I mean, I think it's absolutely right that all of those mitigation things need to be on hold because the potential consequences of what is being discussed are significant, I would say, to use an understatement. What is the current understanding and how is the discussions with the Environment Agency going on, and what is the I'm very keen to be more that this committee is more involved in the development of the new mitigation strategy and has more input than in previous years, and that the mitigation strategy is more, shall we say, evolving with the situation as we see with the Environment Agency changing the warrant. I'm sorry, I'll come back to the point. What is the understanding of what the Environment Agency are currently doing according to this committee?
Thank you, Chair. So with regards to the Environment Agency work, we have not had any formal updates on the work being undertaken because our remit is within our role with the Habitat Regulations Partnership is to implement the existing mitigation strategy. The emerging mitigation strategy is being led by Matt Dickens of East Devon District Council within our local plans team, and I would need to clarify with him his understanding of the emerging Environment Agency work.
Thank you very much. So just for information, from the meeting that I've just come to, they are talking of in 2025 removing the geotube from the back of the warren. That clearly has a major impact, with the expectation of once the geotube is removed, the warren will likely split at some point in the middle, and the distal end will likely rotate through 90 degrees and move towards Exmouth. Now, for things like Pettlewort, I don't quite know where the Pettlewort's going to be. For things like the golf course, it's going to lose hole 9. For things like the protected area refuge zone behind the warren, again, I don't know what the impact is going to be. I would like to see, as a result of the large amount of uncertainty, which the Environment Agency confirmed this morning, and they would confirm that they would circulate further reports on where they currently are and what their current thinking is, that the new emerging mitigation strategy is going to be much more flexible than the one that we have worked to that was set 5 years ago and we have sat rigidly to for 5 years, because the situation is going to be changing. So I would like to see from us, from this committee, what the programme is to actually develop the new mitigation strategy and what the impact is going to be of the requirement for it to be more flexible than the previous structure.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley, on that. I have similar concerns about what's going to happen to Dawlish Warren. I have been speaking to the engineers at Environment Agency because it affects Exmouth Beach as well, which we've got our own separate beach management plan there. And our engineer is talking to their engineer. I think we need to really get involved on the beach, on the plan for the Dawlish Warren, and to understand the significance. How detailed is that going to be, and how involved officers and ourselves? I don't know. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of you that this is significant, and I think the challenge is going to be finding the level of engagement, which clearly needs to happen at a higher level than this committee, wonderful though it is. And once that high level, or those high level discussions have been established and proper input from both your authorities and to a lesser extent Exeter, that then is going to determine the impact on the work of this committee and its terms and references going forward. I think the trick probably for officers is getting the timing right to enable the terms of reference for this body to respond appropriately to what will be a very different situation. Whatever happens with the Environment Agency, the geography is going to look very different, and the impact on the residents is going to be significant, which is probably stating the blindingly obvious and not very helpfully suggesting any way forward. But in terms of the timing we have annual meetings coming up for our our own organisations, whether we need to look at something written in that will enable those changes to happen, rather than, you know, what we don't want to do is if you like, get a result in June and then have to wait until May 24 before we can start making amendments. Does that make sense?
Where do we go? Where do we go from here regarding the plans for Dawley Warren? Because obviously officers are talking to officers. I'm involved in certain issues because of the Exmouth Beach Management Plan, but it's not involving us three in this committee. And what comes first, protecting nature or protecting houses or protecting businesses or protecting the railway, etc. All of that we need to consider, and we have to be wearing our hat of protecting the habitat, but there are going to be other interests as important to other people. So over to you. Yeah.
So from a legal and governance perspective, as you know, the role of this committee is, and I've just got the terms of reference in front of me, is to deliver the identified mitigation measures set out by the three councils. So the work initially starts within the three councils, led by, presumably everybody's got officers, as we have with Matt Dickens leading on ours. So that starts internally with all of our councillors, and that will then filter down. And there will be, I imagine, for all of or for the three authorities, the ability at that point to discuss with your own authorities whether they wish to see the terms of reference of this committee being altered, being broadened, whether there's a different role. This role clearly has worked for the previous period, but are we going into a period where that needs to be changed? But that will have to come from the three authorities. We can ask, but we can't. We at this level can't deliver it because our role is very clearly linked to the delivery. So you could have, I'm going to look to could have a recommendation to ask the partner authorities to comment to this group. But otherwise, I think it's everybody engaging with their own authorities who will be doing this much larger piece of work, which is clearly going on already.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's absolutely right, but I think it's also a responsibility of this committee to highlight that and perhaps request that the three executives consider how they want to take this forward, because I can't see the current format working in such a changing environment.
I totally agree with that. If we can make that into a proposal, and I would second that proposal. And are we all for it?
Can I just check wording? So if we use the wording request that the three chief executives from the three partner authorities meet to discuss how to bring forward consideration of the. Have you got some words for the last bit? I wrote down bring that forward, which isn't helpful.
I meant executive committees rather than the chief executive officers.
As in the three members of this committee.
Put senior leaders in, and then that covers everything, doesn't it?
That's perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, no, that's better. Otherwise, because I don't think you've got the power to push up from here. You need
to request
to come
push it down. Yes, that's right.
So the senior leaders of the three authority. I'm never going to get this from the recording. The senior leaders from the three authorities meet to discuss how to bring forward a review of the mitigation strategy. Does that wording work? And the terms of reference of the committee?
I think.
What are we asking them to do?
Regarding the changing protection of the Dawlish Warren.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah,
Perfect, thank you.
tricky one.
Yeah, it needs to be kind of general enough to allow the flexibility, but actually to reflect our level of concern about the need for because I think it's inevitable there will have to be changes. Yeah, but we don't quite know what they are until we know what.
So if through the chair, just clarify. So it's just Dawlish Warren we're interested in, because actually, if we are considering the approach of the executive committee and our changing landscape, there is more than likely to be other impacts than just upon the Warren. And so,
Yeah.
is that too narrow?
The impact of Dawlish Warren will impact the whole of the estuary. To a certain extent.
One way or another.
Yeah.
And I think the difficulty at the moment is that we are unable to predict quite what's going to happen and quite what the impact is. For example, if the distal end of the Warren, as they suggest, rotates through 90 degrees and moves towards Exmouth, and the Warren breaks in the middle, the navigable channel moves from being beside Exmouth to being in the middle of the river, which means the flatbeds possibly then take over the entrance to Exmouth Harbour, which then means you've got questions of dredging, you've got questions of keeping that clear. There'll be a commercial necessity to keep that clear. You've then got a dredging operation going on in an area that we are currently trying to protect. But we don't know if that will happen or when that will happen until it does. And so we're going to have to be able to be more reactive and to understand the changes as they emerge, let alone the work for the railway to reinforce and to work on the wave protection that will be required on the banks of the river. Last year or the year before, we saw a particular storm, I can't remember what its name was, when the wind was in the wrong direction and waves were breaking over the branch line coming down to Exmouth. If the entrance moves and you get a high tide and a storm, an easterly storm coming in, we will see waves breaking over the railway line and flooding Starcross and Dawlish Warren residential areas. So the railway will need to do the protection that they were going to think about up to 2050. They'll have to do it soon. That in itself then impacts on all of the refuge areas that we are protecting. So we've got an awful lot of work to think about and how we adapt to those changing circumstances to protect the wildlife, let alone the poor petalwort that's going to be washed out to sea, I'm afraid.
Through the chair, so this executive committee operates for implementing the habitat regulations, and so we need to ensure that our future work is focused on that. It's not focused on impact upon the railway line or residential areas, and I suggest through the chair that we look at the ex-estuary as opposed to the protection of Dawlish Warren, because that is inclusive of all three authorities and not just focusing on one geographical area, because under the ex-estuary part of the mitigation strategy, that would be inclusive and work with the harbour authority if it's impact upon the navigable channel and not just a certain geographical area. Thank you, Chair.
Just going back to the Dawlish Warren beach management plan, I take it that Natural England is on that committee and attend the meetings, and they should be then giving us steer to us on what the implications of changes to habitat should be. Now, because we're protecting the habitat, we're just wearing that hat at the moment. We're not wearing the hat of protecting residents or businesses or the railways. I think we need to get a clear steer from Natural England, who are the steerer for this group.
I agree entirely, Chair, and I think you're exactly right. They certainly weren't at the meetings for the Southwest Flood and Southwest Regional Flood and Coastal Committee that I was at this morning. That's not their remit to be there, and that's where the work from an environment agency is coming through, Norway Network Rail. My concern is to the habitat from the work that others will do to protect those other things that is their responsibility, and we have to make sure they do it in a way that doesn't upset the habitat more than absolutely necessary, if you see what I mean. So there's a fine whole big set of things to balance in a moving game of pyramids that are trying to stand on their head, I suspect, in this.
Yeah. And as far as we're concerned now, we're protecting the habitat. But at the meetings that you attend for the beach management plan, it's looking at the whole area. So we need to keep a very good eye on it and to understand that the massive changes that could affect.
So I've got some words, Chair, if this works for you, which is that the committee requests that the senior leaders of the three authorities meet to discuss how to react to the changing protection of the estuary generally. So picking up the point about not just focusing on one area.
Yeah, and so that would cover everything. Thank you for that. Is there any other items on agenda item 7 before we note it?
I think it's good to see progress in so many areas. So thanks to the all involved for getting it moving.
Thank you so much. So we note the progress made in delivering the 2022-23 annual business plan. Note the status of the mitigation measures from each of the plans, as well as explanations given for features subject to the delay and revised completion dates. So do we just raise hands?
Thank you. And that's the approval of the additional recommendation as well.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, Habitat Mitigation Team Update Report, to be presented by Naomi again.
Thank you, Chair. So within this report, we provide updates from both our wildlife wardens and our Devon Loves Dog project coordinator. The wildlife wardens have provided a detailed account of their work and some staff changes that have occurred within the team. And the Devon Love Dog project officer has provided a good update on the work she's been undertaking. I hope it's useful to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the report. Anything to discuss on this item? Over to you again.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see this report. I mean, it's must have been a really tricky time with all the changeovers and staff changes, and that's always hard to manage through. So I'm delighted to see the report back from the team, and I think it does, as we've said before, bring it all to life. So I'd like to thank the team for doing the reports and for pushing on through to get to a more new, stable team. So that's great. So thank you very much.
So,
Just briefly say, I completely agree. Really, both helpful and interesting report. And just by the by, I met Imogen last night because I went to the Friends of the River Exe meeting that was one of the 3 that were held. I think they held one upstream in Tiverton and one in Exmouth and one in the middle in Exeter. And she was there, I imagine, in personal capacity, which was absolutely great to see. Because she was wearing her sweatshirt, I was able to say, I don't know you. Who are you? In a nice way. But it was great. It was great to see her there, and she was very enthusiastic about it. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up about the Friends of the Exe. I went to the meeting the evening before in Exmouth. A lot of people attended. Very keen. It was mainly effluent and sewage issues and Southwest Water issues, but they do seem to be very concerned about the river, and the estuary, obviously. They are looking at an event on, I think it was the 23rd of September, which would be, I think, a benefit for our wardens to be aware of and to be participating in. They haven't come up with any ideas of how they're going to celebrate the event, but basically it's a celebration of the River Exe, which seems that fits into what we're doing on the estuary, and we can demonstrate what we're doing on the estuary for that event. I don't know how that would fit in with the officers. Yes, Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think that it actually is a great opportunity, and certainly there was the same level of enthusiasm for actually getting involved at all of the meetings. There certainly was last night, and this group and networking with, there was a speaker on Zoom from Friends of the River Wye who are further down the journey, and it's really helpful in the sense that they can sort of say, you know, if we were starting now, you know, don't do this, do that. Say, learn from the experience of other establishments. But just in terms of the sheer number of people, and certainly there was talk last night about citizen science projects, which it sits so well with the work that our colleagues, the wardens, are doing, and kind of given when we first started, I think there was a deal of folded arms and glaring at us about what we wanted to do, and this is certainly a bunch of people who want to get involved and probably share our values and our objectives, and the more of those people we can get on side, the easier it's going to be. And I think the folded arms and the glaring has reduced over time when people realise, you know, we're not about stopping them doing what they want to do by way of their hobbies, but the more people we have keeping an eye out and looking at the potential for dogs harassing wildlife or people trampling over petalwork if it hasn't been washed out to sea, and all those things are really positive. So let's stay in step with them as far as we can, and make sure they know about us and our teams as well as us knowing about them.
I'm delighted you both mentioned it first and it wasn't me butting in this time, so that's really, really good. Thank you for that. Fully agree, 100%, and we should get on board with their programme and get them on board with ours as well and work together as much as possible.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed at the meeting, I was speaking to quite a few of them, not many of them are aware of the work that we do and how it is funded, and etc., etc. So it would be really good to meet up with them and to discuss it and to look at working on that date. That would be really useful. One of the things that came up was what do they want from the river, and obviously a clean river is what they all want. And a clean estuary, but what is clean for swimmers and what is clean for the biodiversity is possibly two very different things. So I was trying to explain the balance that we have to look at. I was sitting next to a canoeist, so it was interesting. They're all coming from different directions, but I think we all want the same thing with a bit of balance. Thank you. So, anything else on this?
Chair, do we need to put that into a proposal that the team explore ways of working with the Friends of the Exe?
Yeah.
It's kind of an advisory, isn't it? I mean, I'm just wondering how formal we need to be. I guess for the minutes we probably ought to say that we'd had a discussion about it, but Is that sufficient, or do you actually want to
I was going to
formalise
say
it?
let them, ask them to explore ways of working with them,
Yeah.
because that sort of, I think, gives them an opportunity but doesn't force them to do anything, but encourages them to do what they can.
We're not in the business of writing people's job descriptions, are we? We're giving a steer to the people who manage the team. Yeah.
So we would like to get it. We would like to engage
Yes.
and be look at the possibility of working with them on the celebration in September.
So perhaps, Chair, the team are encouraged to explore ways of working with Friends of the Ex, or the Friends of the Ex, Friends of the River Ex.
Yeah. I think that's probably what they'll end up being called.
Thank you.
And then you've got two existing recommendations then, and,
Yeah,
and this one new one when you're ready.
I propose from the Chair that we note the recommendations set out in the report, that the Executive Committee notes the updates provided by the Wildlife Warden and the Devon Loves Dogs contributor, and to receive a further update to the next meeting of the Executive. So we move on to agenda item 9, communications report update. Do we just note it? Oh, it's you again. Naomi.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an annual report requested by the committee, which reviews the key performance indicators as set out within the report. Hopefully the report is self-explanatory. Just draw your attention to the April 2022 results, which were affected by issues with Google Analytics, and so that's why the data is skewed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any questions from members? Please raise their hands. And Councillor Rigby.
Just delighted to see this, and keep up the good work. It's nice to see measurements going on and actions taken as a result of those measurements. It's excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else? No. So I propose from the Chair that we note the recommendations set out in the report, that the Executive Committee notes the results of the communications report for the period March 2022 to February 23. We will receive the next communication report in March 2024. Cool, that's a long time away. Agenda item 10, finance report. Back to you, Naomi.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides a detailed overview of the financial position of the partnership, with review with our finance team. All sufficients are sufficiently within the black, which is really positive for the committee. And those detailed report, detailed tables and footnotes where any area needs to be explained. So happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions?
I'm just
Councillor Rigby.
delighted to see the new SANGs coming into place. I can't remember the name of what it's called. The South of Exeter one is looking really good. I love the picture of the dog with the 2 wooden sheep. I thought that was fantastic. It's a massive benefit to the local residents there, and doing the job of keeping people there and not coming down to to whatever's left of the Dawlish Warren. So that's going to be good. And it seems like I mean, the budget is what it is. It's all within budget. It's all within control. I think that's fine, and puts us in a good position to go forward and do what we can to protect the habitat in the new circumstances we find ourselves in.
Thank you for that.
No, It's always nice when something's in budget. You're not looking at a cut it, isn't it? This day and age. It's, I mean, in terms of the SIL payments coming through, they come through as they come through. But I'm assuming that there's no kind of obvious causes for concerns. They're making their way through the system in all of our authorities and feeding in. So it's good to see.
So, without any more questions, I propose that from the chair that we note the recommendations set out in the report, that the Executive Committee notes the update of the official financial position, including contributions received, expenditure and anticipated contributions from signed S106 and SIL. And 2, notes the expenditure against budget for 2023, that should be 2022 to 23 annual business plan, and reasons given for any variance. So we move on to agenda item 11, Risk Register Update Report. And I take it's Naomi again.
Thank you, Chair. So we review our risk register on a regular basis and bring reports to the committee on an annual basis. Just think noting the rising inflation and the situation within Eastern Europe, which could affect our housing market and delivery, and also we're seeing similar issues having an impact upon the costings of our mitigation measures, potentially impacting both our income and expenditure, but all are being reviewed, and hopefully the report is sufficiently detailed for you to have a good overview of what's occurring within this area. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rigby.
Sorry.
No problem.
Risk number 6, Dawlish Warren coastal realignment, which is a wonderful way of phrasing the what's happening. I think that the impact of medium is really rather underestimating what's going to happen there. So I think that is something that is probably not, might be worth looking at again, given what we think might well happen, and given that the Environment Agency does seem to be doing this and going ahead with it, or that's their current suggestion anyway. So whilst I think it's right that the response category of accept fallback is there, I think there is a wider impact given the potential impact to the areas that we are actively trying to protect. So as a risk, I think it is greater than is necessarily outlined in this report, and I would suggest that we look at it again.
Thank you for that, Councillor Rigby. Any other comments on that?
I'm not in disagreement about looking at it again, but I wonder how that leaves us in terms of what we have to do at this meeting.
Can we just note it in the minutes?
Yeah.
And Naomi can take that back for the team, and then you can proceed and accept the rest if you're content with those.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I propose from the chair that we note the recommendations set out in the report, that the Executive Committee notes the update on the overall financial position, including contributions received. Am I reading the right one?
No, I think
no, I'm reading the wrong one.
Yeah.
I propose from the chair the recommendations set out in the report that the Executive Committee note the identification, categorisation and prioritisation of risks as recorded in the accompanying risk register associated with the delivery of the South East Devon European Site Mitigation Strategy. Note the control measures in place to mitigate the risks identified. 3, receives the updated risk register report in the last 12 months. And the final point was to review the item on the realignment.
So I think, Chair, we're just noting that in the minutes rather than a recommendation, and
Right,
Naomi can take
okay.
it back to the team as a suggestion.
Thank you. So we go on to agenda item 12, 2023-24 annual business plan and 5-year delivery plan. Over to you, Naomi, yet again.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper sets out our annual business plan and the actions proposed to be undertaken by the team. It also provides an update on our 5-year delivery plan, which is shown in Appendix A. Hopefully the report is sufficiently detailed on the suggested measures and that you've had an opportunity to review those, and so happy to take any questions on the items within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And have we got any comments?
Me again. Well, it's only two of us who can comment first, so it's either me or me, and you're DMOP happy. So, thank you very much. I think as far as the 23-24 annual business plan goes, I think everything's absolutely fine there. Slightly more sort of concerned on sort of 5-year delivery plans and thinking further forward than 23-24 because of the issues that we've already talked about. And I'm interested that the third recommendation is receiving a further report relating to proposed changes to the mitigation strategy regarding the Dawlish Warren. So, I mean, clearly that is a key thing in what we do going forward, and that's going to make a substantial quantum change in what we're trying to do. So I'm delighted to see it recognised in this final report and part of that. I think it's subject to that first thing that we talked about, to see where we go with this and how we deliver and develop that, and the new mitigation strategies and the whole thing that we talked about earlier. So subject to that, I'm delighted to accept this as it stands.
Thank you for that.
No, in agreement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, regarding that final point on Dawlish Warren, our strategy is basically to work with nature, and if nature wants to go in a different direction, we'll have to, in a way, go with it. It's a tricky one. So I propose from the Chair the recommendation set out in the report that the Executive Committee approves the 2023-24 Annual Business Plan, Appendix A, and the commitments and actions set out therein, notes the updated 5-year land delivery plan, also shown in Appendix A, and 3, receives a further report relating to any proposed changes to the mitigation strategy regarding Dawlish Warren and the ex-estuary in relation to Dawlish Warren Beach Management Scheme, timing dependent on completion of the review by the Environment Agency. So that's it. Seeing this as the last meeting of the term of 4 years, and I'd like to say thank you to all the officers and contributors and the legal team, obviously, for all their hard work on this. It's been great working on this committee, and a further thank you to Rachel, Councillor Rachel. Now, and this is your last meeting ever. Thank you for all your contributions, and we will miss you. Thank you.
That's very kind of you, thank you. Yeah, and if you pass on my thanks to, because I know there's a lot of people behind the scenes who don't come to the committee but contribute to it. But it's been an interesting, was it 2016 when we started with this? I was trying to remember how far back it was. It's, yeah, and good luck going forward. It's, yeah, have fun. Thank you.
So that brings our meeting to a close, and I would like to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you.